Welcome back. Hopefully, you're enjoying the beginning of your holiday weekend. Hard to believe it's already Labor Day. My good, Mike, Brad. The older I get, the faster it goes. I want it to slow down, right? I mean, we're getting too old for this. Crazy, crazy.
Yeah, we are getting too old for this, and it's amazing how fast time goes. And I'm searching for a calendar. September 1st is when I got married, so now I'm thinking I really need to get a card, you
Yeah.
know.
Happy anniversary. 33 years.
Uh 30, yeah, 33. Good
33.
reminder there for me.
Jesus
That
saints.
saved
Yes.
me.
You could take credit for that. Yeah, yeah. So, well, standing, congrats. You're a saint. Hey, listen, the reason I don't like that we don't have as much time because the book that we talked about earlier this year has now been released, and I can't wait to get into it. The price, what it takes to win in college football's era of chaos. And back on the show is John Talty, wrote this with Armin Katayan. John, welcome back. Congrats on the book. Tell us what's it like when you release a book and you get all these interviews and things to do and the excitement the book is actually here and it's out to be bought.
It's nerve-wracking. It really is because it's something that it's so different than what I do on a daily basis, where, writing for CBS Sports and 24/7 Sports, you write a story, you get immediate reaction, right? And so this has been what's been really like a 2 year or so process, just kind of working in the shadows, right? And you don't know how it's going to be received. And so, I feel so strongly about this book. I think it's the best thing I've ever done. But in that moment before it's really able to be consumed by people, you just have some butterflies. You just don't know how it's going to go. You don't know how people are going to receive it. You don't know how some of the people that you write about are going to feel about their portrayals. There's just a lot that goes into it. But it's exciting. And I think especially when you get through it, you can look back in hindsight and be like, that was really fun that I got to do all those things. But when you're in the moment, you're just trying to survive and hope that the plane can land safely.
With this book, how the heck did you keep up? Because literally every day something is changing in the environment around college football and college sports. I just think it's got to be incredible how you were able to write a book and then make sure that everything that you had written was up to speed for something that happened today, knowing that tomorrow something else could happen.
There were quite a few phone calls between me and Armin in which some bad words were used as something different dropped, and we had to evolve and change. Like our two of our main characters in our book are Jim Harbaugh and Nick Saban, and just those two guys alone, the ups and downs along the course of the season, and Michigan went a whole different direction with all the sign stealing stuff. But for both of those guys to be out at the end of the game, out of the game by the end of our story, was not something we necessarily anticipated. I think we had an idea that it could happen, but you still have to evolve. And I can remember the last thing we were able to get into the book, our deadline had already passed, but we had a tiny bit of wiggle room where it hadn't been sent to printers yet, but we weren't allowed to do anything. And that's when the House settlement passed. And I had to call my editor. I'm like, we got to get it in the book, man. Like, I know we don't have a lot of room for it, but it has to be as up to date as we can humanly make it possible. So that was a constant challenge. And there were a lot of edits and evolutions along the way to try to keep up with all the things that popped up. But, it was a fun challenge. And I don't know. I don't know if I'd want to do it again. I've joked with people that if I ever write another book, I want it to be a biography about someone who's already dead because nothing can change. But this one, we did the best we could, and I feel really strong about how we were able to kind of put it all together.
The title once again, the price, what it takes to win in college football's era of chaos. Again, we're talking again with our friend John Talty. Remind people. I know we talked about it before, but for those who maybe missed that interview, explain us again, kind of the topic and what the book is about. I think that'll really put what you're saying in even greater perspective.
Yeah, so the general idea behind this book initially started with the famous, Nick Saban, Jimbo Fisher war of words. And for me, it just kind of set off a ton of alarms of what could possibly be happening within college football that would make these two guys say what they said about each other. And again, I will always remember Jimbo Fisher saying that Nick Saban should have been slapped more as a child. That's burned into my brain. And to me, I was like, all right, what is happening here? And so for us, it ended up trying to understand what is happening with inside college football. How did we get to this current moment? What's really going on? And so, I love the title, The Price, because it's a play on NIL. It's a play on all the money that has, flooded into this sport. But really, it's the price that everyone is paying inside college football to try to not only survive, but to flourish in this world. And it's put intense pressure. I mean, there's just a lot of things that have happened the last 4 or so years. I think you can go back to COVID-19 impact, NIL, transfer portal, conference realignment, all that happening in one small time frame. And it's had a tremendous impact on the sport and everyone inside of it. And I think we wanted to detail not only how did that happen, how did we get here, what were the kind of behind the scenes things that led to these moments, but also what's the real life impact of these momentous changes within the sport.
How do you think this is going to evolve in terms of what it takes to win? Because we keep hearing time and time again that the Super League is coming. So in essence, the SEC and Big Ten, in theory, I'm not saying this is going to happen, but this super contract that they have, each of them has for huge amounts of money, is still not going to be enough. Do you see that continual move towards every decision is all about the maximization of revenue?
It's what it's been, right? One of my favorite quotes is, the old Teddy Roosevelt quote about, comparison is the thief of joy. And I think we've seen the comparison drive a lot of these decisions, right? We have a chapter in the book about how the Pac-12 imploded. And so much of it was about them seeing what the Big Ten got and saying, we deserve that too, which was not realistic, was not accurate. It led to them dissipating essentially overnight this 100+ year conference. And it was because they couldn't accept where they actually sat within the college football ecosystem and they wanted more money. Almost every decision you see made now is driven by money. Conference realignment is driven by money. The unrest you see within the ACC right now with Florida State and Clemson is driven by money. And so all of that, I think, is not going away. I think there's still going to be more realignment that comes, right now. And this one does not move the needle nearly as much as some of these other ones. But, right now you're talking about the Big 12 and UConn. And, the UConn is the Big East crown jewel right now. It'd be a major blow for the Big East to lose UConn at this point, especially as they allowed them to come back into their conference and kind of threw them a life raft. Why are they doing it? It's driven by money. And so I think the pursuit of that extra dollar is corrosive in many ways. And I think it's led to a lot of decisions that might not age well. I think I might've mentioned it the last time I was on, but, I went to Maryland. I saw it play out firsthand and, it's been good overall, but there's a loss that comes along the way. And I think that this season in particular, I'm so excited for it. The Big Ten, Ohio State at Oregon might be the game of the year. And that's awesome. And I can't wait to see that game. But I do think there's an impact and there's a loss of, Oregon's rivalry with Oregon State, and it is not meaning the same that it used to. And that, to me, I think is one of the concerns moving forward of kind of where we're at when you put $1 above maybe what's best for your school or your fan base or your coaches or whatever it might be.
That's a great point. You bring up UConn, and Mike and I were discussing this here just earlier in the day. That's one, again, that you say you're the 2-time defending national basketball champions. You are the king of the roost. And yet that's how strong the allure of the football money is, that no matter how much money you're making, and I mean, you've got to figure they are the big breadwinners, right, in the Big East, but that football dollar still, if you can get over there, you'll increase your numbers by X. And so it's amazing that even though you're UConn in basketball, what they mean in men's and women's, the football draw on that money is still so lucrative that we're having this conversation.
I think there's two things that I think are really fascinating about UConn and the Big 12. One, it's the exact point that you made. Football drives everything, right? It drives all these decisions. And there's a quote in my book from the Maryland AD, Damon Evans, and it was kind of a fun ricochet shot at a former rival. But he said, listen, like, ain't nobody talking about adding Duke. It's about football. Like that's what drives. That's the premier properties. What I think is interesting about the UConn one is that they're trying to add them more for basketball. Big 12 believes there's value in adding premier basketball programs, and they believe they can, split up some of the TV rights. The Big 12 is the only one who believes this. No one else is making a decision based off of this. So I'm fascinated to see if they ultimately add UConn, whether Brett Yormark's big bet actually pays off, because no one else has really gone about it in that way. And, with the football stuff, you don't want to say don't dream big, don't try to be better than you are. But like, man, it's hard for me to talk myself into UConn football ever being super relevant in this current world. And I get that they don't want to be independent. They want to be in a safe harbor. I completely understand that. But is that worth sacrificing basketball? I mean, Big 12 basketball is incredible, but it's hard for me to imagine Danny Hurley's really excited about, a trip to Waco when you're used to playing Nova and Georgetown and all those other schools.
Yeah, the college experience is so good for that basketball program and what it brings to UConn students. It's hard for me to even see why they're entertaining this. The question I have for you is there a real sense, and this I think even goes over to pro sports, that this whole economic value is built on a house of cards? Because at some point, can these networks keep promising more and more and more money? And when the time comes that they say, hey, guess what? We're going to cut by 25% because we're just sponsoring a bunch of people to be super wealthy in terms of the players, and that doesn't look good anymore. Is there a vulnerability that all these sports, particularly college sports, is heading to where they could fall off of a financial cliff? Or am I just being an old guy shouting at clouds?
You're not being an old guy shouting at clouds. I think I increasingly liken it to a game of musical chairs. And I think that the SEC and Big Ten will probably always be able to find a great chair. But we've seen, whether it's ESPN or Fox or other players, as time goes on, certain rights are getting jacked up so much more, and you have to prioritize. So for a lot of them, it's NFL 1, NBA 2, and then college is usually 3. Well, sometimes people get left out. We saw the NHL essentially get exiled for a long time. NASCAR has had problems with its rights. And I think that's going to be really interesting. And a lot of these deals are going to come up, 2030, 2031 in that range. A lot of time we'll see what the market looks like between now and then. I imagine there'll be more consolidation among some of these major media companies, but they're going to have to prioritize. What do we have to have? What do we want? What do we need? And again, I think Big Ten and SEC are strong enough that they are needs for a lot of places. But for the ACC, is that a need? I don't know. It depends on the price you get them for. And, there's maybe an opportunity for someone else to get some bargains. And we've seen that for some of the lesser ones. There was a time where it felt like every college football rights were going up. And for a lot of them, it has. But I also can remember Conference USA, their rights really didn't go up, and they've kind of gotten left out. And that you could see Pac-12, they thought their rights were going to go up big time, and they couldn't get it. And then the Pac-12 is gone. And so I wouldn't be shocked if that happened again when we have the next huge round of all these TV rights being open again.
A great point. And I think that one thing that makes this unique is the Big Ten having kind of a major foothold in 3 of the markets, 3 of the networks. Not that others don't, but it's, it used to be, it was, the NFL model, right? The, AFC is NBC because they were the AFL, back in the 60s. And then that meant that CBS was always NFL, and there's some cross there. And I just think that's the other piece of this is when streaming comes in, it becomes more prevalent. The ad dollars are different. How does that figure into things? And I think you can see some of the deals right now where some of these, and especially the NBA, and where Turner Sports is getting left out, is that, they went in and tried to change some of the language. When Amazon already has a streaming platform that Turner doesn't have. And so all these pieces kind of fit into place. You're exactly right. I want to ask you before we let you go. So as people read the book, the price, again, we can't wait to get into it. We've been talking about it here among us all summer since we talked to you before. What would you like people who read the book to come away with when they're finished?
Oh, I hope that they have a greater understanding of what college football is really like right now. I think that there's some of these things, and I know all of us are pretty in the weeds, but even for me, someone who's been doing it for a long time, there's still stuff that can be a little confusing. I think especially when it comes to how does a collective really work? How do they structure their deals? Like there's some stuff that I think people are generally interested in of, what's the real life version of this? I think that we do a really good job of detailing that. Again, I would hope that there's both a short term, I think, and long term hope for this book. I think long term, as we eventually hopefully figure things out and we enter salary cap era and stuff like that, I hope people a decade from now look back, be like, man, it was really wild back then. And it'll be fun for them to see just how wild it was, because I do think this is the wildest period in college football history. And I think short term, it's understanding, why did Nick Saban walk away? Why did Arizona leave the Pac-12? It's, all these different kind of bold-faced names. What led to Jimbo Fisher's, dismissal at Texas A&M? It's a lot of stuff that I've never seen reported out there before that, we detail pretty intensely in the book. And so, I think it'll give a pretty good understanding of what it's like. Tom Crean was tweeting about it the other day and talked about how much he loved it and sent me a message privately about how he's like, I think every coach in America should read this book. So I would love for that to happen too. But I think if you're an average fan, I think you'll learn a lot and have a greater understanding of kind of what your favorite team and favorite coach is dealing with right now in this, chaotic era of college football.
Yeah, we really hope every fan picks this up and reads it. One, we'd like you to be successful and sell as many books as possible. But I think from a knowledge standpoint, and we all deal with this in terms of in the social media era, people pick up a snippet and they run with it, and rumor becomes, a thought becomes fact. And I'm looking forward to digging in, and to your point, really reading into kind of the hows and whys behind the scenes of how we got here, not just today's talking point that's forgotten tomorrow. So we can't wait. Once again, the book is The Price: What It Takes to Win in College Football's Era of Chaos. John Talty, congratulations again. Really appreciate your time. And when you get the next book, let us know, and we want to talk about that one too.
I think I'm going to need a little break. This was a 2-year process. So I'm going to, hopefully at the end of this, pour a little bourbon, enjoy it for a little bit, and then we'll see what the next book idea is. But I really enjoyed talking to you guys and look forward to talking to you again sometime soon.
Awesome. Well, enjoy that bourbon. You deserve it. And hopefully, again, many sales and great success with the book. Congrats again, and we'll talk to you soon. John Talty, once again, The Price: What It Takes to Win in College Football's Era of Chaos. You can find it everywhere. We've already ordered our copy, and we'll be talking about that, I know, throughout this season right here. All right, we've got more to come. The conversation continues after this.